Hello everybody, this is Godzilla 1991 here, and today/tonight, depending on what time it is when you're watching this video, I will be talking about the NECA Godzilla 1994. This particular suit was MogeGoji, named after Mogira, and I suspect if he were called Space Goji, that would of course confuse you with the antagonist of the movie, Space Godzilla. However, we all know him as Heisei Godzilla, even though you had 84 Goji, BioGoji/Ghidra Goji, and Bata Goji, etc. and so on, who also go under that title. You know what I mean. Now this was NECA's first Godzilla, well to be precise, the first of their Toho Godzillas, as 94 was actually the second, because 2014 Godzilla was the first, and both were released in 2014, over 16 years ago at the time I'm making this video, so this model is now a figure of yesterday. Well, all of NECA's Godzilla merch are yesteryear, but you can still find them on eBay, second-hand stores, or sci-fi conventions. I got him for the Christmas of late 2014, and he's made the odd appearance in past videos, mainly as cameos. However, he now finally has his own review, which was always the intent. This was also released approximately 2 years after the SH Monster Arts figure made his debut, to which I believe the NECA was made as a cheaper version, and on first sight they do appear to look identical, but they are their own models. I don't have the original figure to compare him to, but others who own both figures have done so. He has a glossy sheen look to his sculpt, to which I always interpreted that as him rising out of the sea, with his iconic theme playing. I do love the Godzilla March theme, much better than Jurassic Park in my opinion, and its colour scheme is charcoal black for the main body, with a tint of green added for some reason. The dorsal spines are bone silver, with black in the middle, and the mouth is naturally flesh red. The articulation for this NECA model is quite easy to operate, and it's a shame that the articulation of later releases were really stiff, and in order to get the joints to cooperate, you had to heat the figures up, either by hairdryer, boiling hot water, or even wait until the next heat wave. I don't honestly know why NECA thought that it would be a good idea to harden up the articulation, because you had to use boiling hot water in order to attach the tail. I don't recall it being like that in the early days, as it's like they wanted to give you a challenge before your figure, and whenever they did this, I always thought, I don't want a challenge, I want the model. You take one look at this Godzilla, and you can tell that he is an incarnation from the 90s, because his legs are pretty muscular, and this was a feature that was quite noticeable with not all but many of the Kaiju at the time, like MechaGodzilla, Space Godzilla and Destroyer, etc. and so on, and possibly Mothra too. I think it was meant to be a homage to sumo wrestlers, as back then they were very popular over in Japan. I could be wrong on that. Being that this is one of the earliest of NECA's Godzilla models, his tail starts off as joints, then ends in a wire at the end, probably to stand out from SH Monster Arts, despite the fact that again, the tails of later releases would adopt a similar function to the Tamachi Nations figures. When it comes to the design of the dorsal spines, the structure on most Godzillas goes like this. You have the main tall spines in the middle, that are the largest, and the spines on both sides are the smallest. But here on the Heisei Godzilla, as you can see, they're all large. The head of Godzilla 90s is pretty animalistic in appearance, because up until that point, Godzilla from the Showa series originally had a dragon-like head, and then it became lizard-like. And while yes, Heisei is still dragon mixed in with a lizard, however he is more dinosaur-looking, while the king of the monsters has always been a lizard who resembles a retro outdated dinosaur with the ability of a dragon in his atomic breath. Also, something else that makes Godzilla 90 stand out from the crowd would be the extra teeth on his lower jaw, just like on a shark, to which I'm guessing it's to indicate that Godzilla is just as deadly and dangerous as one. I believe that he is pausable, but as you can clearly see, I display him in this pose because it shows him making his presence known. You can really feel the might of this titan, and you do not want to mess around with him, because that will be the last thing that you'll ever do. Now for size comparisons. I'm only doing one, and that will be with the Bandai Movie Monster Series Space Godzilla, the 2019 reissue, which is only fitting, and I do plan to talk about him when it's near the release of Godzilla X Kong Supernova next year, because I hear that Space Godzilla is going to be the antagonist in it. I don't know if it's true or not, but if so, I do think that the character is long overdue, and it really will make a nice change from the usual King Ghidorah or even MechaGodzilla. So what are my final thoughts on the NECA Godzilla 1994? Yes, I think he's one of NECA's best in my honest opinion, and except for the odd areas that appear to show a bit of greenness, he seems to be mostly screen accurate, unless of course there are any other inaccuracies that are missed, to which you could all just point out in the comments. By the way, out of all their Godzilla models, this one's actually my favourite. One of the best in the collection, as I just said, and if you're a Heisei enthusiast, highly recommendable if you can find him. Also, not to mention that later on down the line, this figure was repurposed as Burning Godzilla from 1995's Godzilla vs. Destroyer, to which I do have, and we'll look at him another time. But until then, this is Dragonzilla 1991 signing out. Take care, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.